Hello, and welcome to episode 116 of the Pos-cast with Rabbi Shmuel Posner, myself, Seth Hellman. Rabbi, how are we doing today?
Baruch Hashem, we're good. Today's a holiday. It's actually finishing now because it's almost nighttime. Because we got delayed in recording this. So now the 13th of Tammuz is over. We're getting over. So Yud Beis Tammuz is the day that the previous Rebbe was completely exonerated from his the accusations of the Soviet government at the time that had him arrested. So it's interesting because Yud Beis Tammuz is a 2-day holiday, Yud Beis and Yud Gimel, the 12th and the 13th. Because on the 12th day, when he went to check he was then in exile for 3 years in a place called Kostroma. And when he went to check in, it was a kind of legal Russian Jewish legal holiday. So there's only one guy on call. And he said, we got information that you're going to be totally free, but we can't let you go yet because we don't have the official paperwork. I know we don't usually advertise other people's podcasts on the Pos-cast, but if you look for, there was, I forgot what it's called. I don't remember what the name of it is, but I know it's done.
So I guess we really don't talk about other people's
right.
podcasts
No,
on the Pos-cast.
I know who does it, but I don't know what they call. I forgot what they call it. It's called Der Herr, Derher, Der Herr, and they did a program with David Margolin. And his parents are Russian, so he's also Russian. His parents grew up in Russia, and so he does a lot of investigative reporting and writes a lot of articles about the situation. What was not just the stories of what happened, but getting into what was the political circumstances during the times that Lubavitch was in Russia. And so he talks about on this podcast about the circumstances that brought to the Frierdiker Rebbe being in prison and why he was in prison, all that. And there was this, the whole background of what happened after World War I and how the different parties, how the Soviet parties developed. And exactly that night when the Frierdiker Rebbe was arrested, it was a night that the Russian ambassador, who was on a trade mission in England, I believe, got killed. And because he got killed, so therefore hey, you pulled it up. Yeah, it's the one with Dov Margon. There it is. What a great producer I have. Okay, now get that off the screen. Right there too. Everybody sees what it is. Yeah, so he talks about, so I was listening to it on the way to New York. I'm in New York right now because I came to visit my father. So I was listening to it and it was fascinating. It was really interesting stuff because and the point of, I'm giving away the content, but it'll whet your appetite. Because the Rebbe said that the freeing of the Frierdiker Rebbe from prison was a miracle embodied in nature. Nes melubish b'teva. So there's different kind of miracles. Like there's miracle like the splitting of the Red Sea. That's a miracle that transcends nature, just busts nature out of the way. Then you have miracles that are like natural. Like, for example, Purim. There was a war. The Jews won the war. Okay, we're not talking about so that's like, okay. The king wanted a queen. He found a Jewish queen. Yeah, you needed a minister. He had Mordechai. All this stuff is like, you can put that in a box and call it nature. You can't call lighting a menorah nature. It's not natural. Okay. So then, but the fact that the Jews actually won the war, the fact that the whole story of Purim came out the way it came out, it means it's a miracle that's embodied in nature. So it's natural that the crazy king would get angry at his queen. It's natural that he wanted the most beautiful woman to be his wife. Yeah, but the fact that it all works out exactly that way is pretty incredible. And so with the Frierdiker Rebbe was the same thing also. The fact that he was arrested that night and he happened to walk down the wrong hallway and while he was there, he could hear people being shot, but he was in the wrong room, so he got saved. The fact that Latvia wanted to have a trade agreement with the Soviet Union for their own political reasons, and the fact that there was actually Lubavitch Chassid who was part of their parliament, and he made it as a condition for the trade agreement to happen that they would let the Frierdiker Rebbe leave, and because Rebbe got out of prison, it's in 1927. He got out of prison on the 12th and 13th of Tammuz, but the way he got out was there was this high minister in the government that they were able to get on their side and get him out. and there was pressure from foreign governments as well. But when he went back to a place called Petersburg, then was called Leningrad, now it's back to Petersburg. So the local Soviet secret police still hated the Frierdiker Rebbe, and they would say, "We're going to get you." So he knew he couldn't stay there. So, it's like we think about it like in the United States, like there's no local police force that would do something against the federal government. But in the Soviet Union, it didn't work that way. It's true they had to listen to the central government, but they also had a certain amount of autonomy, and they can go arrest them and arrest somebody and kill them. The central government doesn't care in Stalin's time, could care less if another person was put to death. So the Frierdiker Rebbe realized he has to get out of Russia. But he said he's not, they wanted to send him away. He said, I'm not going unless I take my whole family with me. At that time, our Rebbe was not yet married to the Frierdiker Rebbe's daughter. And so they said to him, what do you need your future son-in-law? You find somebody else. And famously, the Frierdiker Rebbe is said to have said, a son-in-law like this you can't find anywhere else. So anyway, so that's all of this is showing how the natural environment of what was going on in the world and was going on in the politics of the Soviet Union and the countries around it had a great effect on the future and the actual fact that saying people in the foreign countries didn't know the Frierdiker Rebbe was arrested for 2 weeks. They had no way. How would they know? The Soviet Union arrested a rabbi, and so somebody in the United States would know about it. So it took almost 2 weeks till they found out, and then the United States started pressuring the United States government. Did all kinds of things. So yeah, but just understanding what's going on in the world around the Frierdiker Rebbe at that time, and understanding what the thinking was in the Soviet Union at that time. Because even at that time, it wasn't as bad as it was later on. So when the Frierdiker eventually left in 1927, his life was saved. He would have been there 5 or 10 years later. Nobody knows what, it got much harsher, much worse. Anyway, that's what that podcast is about. Why did I mention it to you? I don't even know. Anyway, so we have 2 days, Yud Beis and Gimel Tammuz, we celebrate. And what are we celebrating? That the Frierdiker, I went to Chicago. Everybody knows I went to Chicago. When I came to Chicago, I sat down at the Fabringen there. I'll get back to it. And this guy comes over. I knew who he was, but he's very smart because when you see a guy like me, you don't assume I know anything. You just come over and say what your name is. Too many people don't do it. They look at me and nod and smile back. And many times I don't have much of an idea who the person is. So you can't over-introduce yourself enough times, but you could under-introduce yourself only one time, and then you're like, who is this guy? So he came over and said, my name is Baruch Epstein. He said, I knew you were going to be in Chicago. Now, the fact that I knew I'd be in Chicago shouldn't be a surprise, because he lives in Chicago, and, all the Chabad, my other friend who lives there, my former classmate, Meir Shanowitz, said to me, oh, I saw your picture plastered all over Chicago. But this other guy obviously didn't see my picture plastered all over Chicago. And he said, I knew you were going to be here. He said, you know how I knew? I said, how did you know? I listened to the Pos-cast. I'm like, oh, great. And I said to him, oh, by the way, your brother called me this morning or yesterday and told me that he listened to the Pos-cast. His brother lives in South Carolina, and he's a good friend of mine. So the fact that he listens is not such a big deal. But now him and his brother are listening to the Pos-cast. This is great. I mean, I just have to mention that I'm in my brother's house, Uri, and his wife, Cherry. And I'm on this iPad that has it comes in a leather case, and it's standing because we couldn't the technicalities of getting the iPhone to my phone to be able to do this didn't work. So, and he said, I never knew why he got this iPad. It just cost they gave it, whatever plan he got, they pretty much gave it to him for nothing or for very little. So he has it. But now he knows why he got it. And that's actually look at your physical belongings sometimes. Why do I need this for? And that's why when I was a kid, I would go to yeshiva. So I lived in Borough Park, went to Ocean Parkway. So there's a bus goes on 50th Street from 11th Avenue until 18th Avenue. So it's like 7 long blocks. After that, I think we pretty much have to walk like another 15 or 20, about 15 minutes. So if some days there was no bus and somebody's going down that street, you would hope they would ask you if you want to have a ride. This is back in the 60s, late 60s and 70s when people weren't afraid to go in someone else's car. And Borough Park, you should never be, it's a lot of from Jews there. So I always would, especially if it was cold or it was hot or it was raining. And so I made up in my mind that when I drive, anybody wants a ride, I'm going to give them a ride. You drive from point A to point B anyway, and you can help another Jew, you might as well. And for me, I can try to go with another Jew. That's an added value.
Mm.
So, I hesitate to tell everybody how the Farbrengen went in Chicago. First of all, it's on YouTube. It was a place called Free, which is the F period, R period, E period, E period, and E period. And what it stands is Friends of Refugees of Eastern Europe. Now, the first Friends started in Crown Heights. They actually have a shul called the Free Shul. And it's not free, it just happened, that's the acronym. And this is a branch there in Chicago. And in fact, the senior rabbi was talking about how his grandfather and his father, how they were in prison and, they lived through the Soviet Union. And I guess he didn't live through it, but he was born there, and his son obviously American. Anyway, so they had it on. Now I know you're looking it up. I can see from your eyes you're looking it up. So, and then people say, oh, if that's the Farbrengen and they listen to the Pos-cast, then what's going to happen? But anyway, one thing I did was the sort of like a head table. It wasn't a head table. It wasn't like on a stage, right? Just a central table, and like three tables coming out from it, but not 3 tables, 3 rows of tables. And in the middle row, which I was in the middle of the head table, was about 10 kids were sitting there. And I decided at some point, I don't remember everything that happened at the Farbrengen. You know what I'm saying? So
I know exactly what you're saying.
Okay, don't tell anybody. So I decided I'm going to talk to the kids because these are mostly Lubavitch. First of all, the reason I went there was because there's Tzvi Hirsch Safrin, Binyamin Arein Akayin Kaplan, and Levi Stahl. These are 3 guys that came through Boston. So Levi Stahl actually went to BU, and I think his first experience with Chabad, yes, for sure, was at the Chabad house. And Binyamin Kaplan and Tzvi Hirsch came to the Chabad house, they were already fully Shomer Shabbos and all that. They just needed to be a little, how do I say it, be encouraged a little. They needed to be knocked around. When you have something, a sculptor, you have to bang it around, Anyway, so they're the ones that suggested to the rabbi that I should come, and that's why I was there. So I was, and also Bezalel Reis was there. Who's Bezalel Reis? He's the herring man. You Google that one too, herring man. Anyway, so I have all these Lubavitcher people there, and I'm not, and I had a lot to talk about. I was on the plane there. I listened to a recording of the whole Farbrengen, not the whole, most of the Farbrengen that the Rebbe gave on Yud Beis Tammuz in 1965. I got turned on to that because I heard part of a talk on a different thing that I get every day. I get a little 10-minute piece of talk the Rebbe had, something that's connected to that day of that parsha. So I had my earbuds in, and I was listening to the Sikh all the way there. But then these kids are sitting there, and I'm thinking, like, what do I? As I started talking to them directly, and I love doing that because you can talk very simply then, right? If you say, I'm talking to the kids, and you could say ideas that are profound, but you can say really simple, because a lot of people that are sitting around, and you say something that's really deep, and like you lose them because they don't concentrate. But if you're talking to an adult, if you went to an adult and you talk to him on a 10-year-old level, right? He's like, why are you talking to me? I'm not a child. But if you're talking to a 10-year-old child and the adult is listening, then like, oh. So once I forget when it was. I think it was Pesach or something. For some reason, some school came with like 20 kids. And he used to give a talk every Shabbos right after Torah reading. It stopped in COVID and never started again. So nobody ever complained. So so he had these like 20 kids or 10 kids that were there. And I know it was like Shemini Atzeres or Simchas Torah, because I know what I was talking about. Why do you dance with the Torah when it's closed? The answer is because you're not dancing. Why you should sit and read the Torah? Because here what we're doing is we're celebrating the one who gave us the Torah, and the giving of the Torah is beyond. Like it's Hashem's Torah. It's not this logical Torah that you can learn and understand it. It's so much deeper. It's like the connection with the giver of the Torah than just celebrating the actual Torah itself. So I was explaining this to the kids, and I was giving this whole example, like it's your birthday, and somebody comes in with a big box and it's covered with gift wrap. Are you excited? Of course. But you don't even know what's inside it. So what are you excited for? Because my best friend just brought me a present. For sure, it's something special, something he knows I like, and it's going to be something from him. It's going to be amazing. So that was a great way of explaining why we dance the Torah when it's wrapped around. But you want to say to somebody, like, you want to talk that way to somebody, right? But when you're talking to 10-year-old kids, you can talk that way, and it's okay. And meantime, the adults are listening. So I said to these kids, I said, you know how long 1927 was? It was 97 years ago, maybe 98, but anyway. I said 97. I said, you know what 97 is? I said, if one of you is 10 years old, it's like it's taking 10 of you and putting one on top of each other. That's 97 years. And it was good. It was good. They really, you know what? I can see they were into it. They were listening. It was great. Nothing better. And these were good kids. So that's what happened. We talked about Yud Beis Tammuz. So in the beginning of that Sikha, what happened was on that Tuesday when the Rebbe went to the office, because he had to check in the office, and there was one person on duty because it was a Russian holiday of some sort, maybe religious, maybe not. I don't know. Probably not religious. So you didn't have much of a religion. So what happened was the one person on duty said, "Oh, you got to come back tomorrow, but you should know you're free to go after tomorrow. It's got the paperwork." So the chassid that was with the Frierdiker Rebbe, like the way the Rebbe says it, his place was half white and half bread. Like the guy was going to collapse, or who knows what. So the Frierdiker Rebbe had just found out that now he's free to go wherever he wants. He's no longer in exile. And what's the first concern he has is for the chassid who accompanied him, who's about to collapse. So there was like, doing things to try to revive him, calm him down. You know what I'm saying? It's like, this is the most exciting thing happening in your life, but you have to take care of somebody else because his reaction is like, he can't deal with it. It's too overwhelming for him, which I think is pretty cool. The Rebbe doesn't talk about this in the Sikha. I think it's very cool that, the Rebbe is always thinking about somebody else. Then he went back to his house, and there was another chassid there. His name was Michal Dvorkin. And he heard about it, and he took a small bottle of vodka, I guess, and he started dancing around the Rebbe's house. And he was singing a song. The song is Nyet, Net, Nikava, Kramneva, Odnava, right? Which means, there's no one like you, Hashem. And the Rebbe in that talk said that there's a way of singing Nyet, Net, Nikava, Kramneva means besides you. But sometimes you put in a word in Russian which means Hashem, besides Hashem. But then the Rebbe said it, you should be using that word that indicates Hashem, because even in a language that isn't Hebrew, we also don't just say the name. In English, G-O-D is Hashem's name. We shouldn't say it in vain. And you shouldn't say it surely in some nasty context like, G-O-D, whatever this, whatever that. So that's what the Rebbe said, you should say Kram Niva. So that's what this chassid was dancing around the house. And then there was a little boy, 8, 9, 10 years old, and he was doing a headstand on some kind of railing of some sort. And that was like the different reactions of the people that were surrounding the Rebbe. You had one, the chassid was going to faint and collapse. Then you had the chassid who was just a simple man, and that's why he was singing songs in Russian, because he grew up. He used to work in a forest wood chopper, in the forest. So with Russians, so he became, Russia was his common language. Then you have this little boy just doing something. Now, walking on your hands. What does walking on your hands mean?
To have your feet in the air.
And continue. Your feet are in the air, and
your head is on the ground.
Excellent, perfect. So, which is completely opposite of what normally happens to a person. Normally, a person's head is above and feet is down. When you put yourself, when you're walking on your hands, your head is on the bottom and your feet on the top. Now, what does that mean? What is the difference between head and feet? The head is what you use to study, to think, to meditate, to know the greatness of Hashem. Your feet, what do you do with your feet? They take you places. You step on them. You walk. But and why do the feet do it? Not because you can be walking into the most important meeting in the world, or you can just be randomly taking a walk. Your feet don't know a difference. They don't care. It doesn't impress them where you're going. They'll take you wherever you have to go. So in serving Hashem, that is the idea of obedience, accepting what Hashem wants because Hashem wants it. Not because you understand, not because that's meaning to, because that's what Hashem wants. And so that's sort of what's being indicated when the Friedrich comes to the house and this little boy is standing on his feet. There is also something called, at some Hasidic Farbrengens that go till very late at night or early the next morning, at the end of Farbrengen, they do somersaults. Have you ever seen somersaults by Chassidim? And that's the idea that you want to show your whole nullification to Hashem, your whole devotion to Hashem to the point that you roll over so your head is below and your feet are above. Like, you're totally out of limitations. It's not a question of I understand this or I like that. It's all what Hashem wants. I do it. I don't think about it. So that was right. So that's what I was talking to these kids about, which is right. It was wonderful. So the other thing I told them about this at the Farbrengen, but this is definitely Pos-cast material. Why? Because it's from Newbury St. So on Sunday, right now it's every Sunday. I'm not going to do this coming Sunday. This coming Sunday is a fast day, the 17th of Tammuz. And I know that this past Sunday and the Sunday before, when I went on Newbury St, I think I drank 4 or 5 bottles of water. So we're going to have to adjust on Newbury Street's plans for this coming Sunday, even though it's the opening day for officially Newbury St. So what happened this past Sunday, this kid Isaac, who goes to Northeastern, he came with me. We stood there for 2 hours. And nobody put on tefillin. We gave out some Shabbos candles, we spoke to some people. But obviously the vast majority of people that passed by were not Jewish. But even the few Jews that we talked to, nobody put on tefillin. Till finally, this kid walks by, was very proper, like he's not wearing a proper shirt and trousers, and he's carrying a travel bag, and he says, we say Jewish, yeah. So you want to put on tefillin? He said, oh yeah, I'd like to do it, sure. And then afterwards, I said to him, so what are you doing in Boston? He said, yeah, he's doing research in Northeastern. No, he's doing research in Lincoln Labs, and he lives nearby in Northeastern. Okay, he put on tefillin, and he said Shema, very good. Then I said to him, but what are you doing in America now? And this is the other. I mixed 2 stories up. Scratch that. He's not connected to Northeastern. I'm so exhausted. I mixed it all up. He said, I'm from Chicago. I was on Cape Cod for the weekend. I said, you're from Chicago. I'm going to Chicago tomorrow. And then I said, and he's not in the same area. He's living in Evanston, near Northwestern. So I quickly found the number. I said, you got to go for Shabbos there. And after he left, I'm like, oh my, it's so wonderful. Because the first person to put on tefillin after 2 hours standing was a kid that's from Chicago. That's a sign that I have to go to Chicago.
You were already going to Chicago, so you needed an extra sign to go?
I had to know that Hashem wanted it to happen.
Huh.
I always get those signs, always. I don't look for them. It's like waiting for somebody to tell me something, but when things come and I process them, I think, oh yeah, that definitely was a shine from Hashem. I'm doing the right thing. So that's that. What else are we going to talk about today on the Pos-cast? What else are we going to talk about? We can talk about the Parsha. Oh, Bilam. Bilam. See, the Rebbe spoke about this in that Farbrengen that I was talking about. He says Bilam was like a prophet that's considered to be equal to Moshe Rabbeinu. That's crazy to think about it. But then when you see what does Bilam say? He's like the greatest prophet of the non-Jews. He says, I can't say anything Hashem doesn't want me to say. Nothing. If Hashem doesn't want me to say it, I can't say it. Which is incredible how Hashem shows this man who wants to curse the Jews, Hashem shows him that he's not in control. And that's why every time he opens his mouth to curse the Jews, out comes blessings. Until the final blessing, which is Ma Toivu Alecha, is said, which we say in davening every day. Where's it from? It's from this evil person. But I think that's just a very powerful idea. That everything you're in control. Hashem is in control. He gives you free choice. That's fine. That's what he gives you. You have to know that everything that's happening is happening because Hashem wants it to happen. So he goes so far. And he doesn't say I can't prophesy what Hashem doesn't want me to prophesy. I can't curse somebody Hashem doesn't want me to curse. He says I can't do anything that Hashem doesn't want me to do. And that's pretty wild. Yeah. Yeah. So if you take the word Bilam and you take the word Amalek, for this you're going to have to use a little imagination. We'll get it out of pen and paper. If you write Amalek, if you write Bilam, Beis Lamed Ayin Mem, underneath it you write Amalek, Ayin Mem Lamed Kuf, then you start reading Bilam. You go Beis Lamed, and then go to the next line. Ayin Mem. What does that spell? Bilam. Now, the second letters of Bilam's name are Ayin and Mem. The second letters of Amalek is Kuf, Lamed and Kuf. So you start from the second letters of Bilam, Ayin Mem, Lamed Kuf. You end up with Amalek. So each one, so you see how they're intertwined one with the other. Bilam and Amalek. And both Bilam and Amalek had some connection to Judaism. They were like descendants from Avram or something like that. And so each one of them, like they see, the enemy that's outside of you is your enemy. You know it's an enemy. I can listen to them. It's the enemy that's within you that says, no. I don't hate you. I'm your friend. Come, let's do this together. It takes you in a bad way. That's Bilam and Amalek. Say, we know the Jews. We know the Jews. Our ancestors were Jews. And this is connected to the story of the Friedrich Rebbe also, that the ones that actually arrested him, see, they had like an agency, like the agency to take care of the Jews. And that these are Jews that like were going out to get other, believe more in communism. They believe in saving their Jewish brethren. So what do you see from that? What was I saying before that? So anyway, those that have a connection to Judaism, they say, I have a right to have an opinion. I have an opinion. Well, I'm Jewish, I know. And that's why the worst thing is when somebody, says something negative about Israel, but I'm Jewish, and I say, like, okay, you know what? You should be ashamed of yourself. There's so few of us in the world, we shouldn't be arguing about certain things that are important to Judaism in front of the whole world. You have a problem, go talk to them, but don't go make a public announcement about it. So those that are somewhat steeped in Judaism and have some connection, they want to exploit it in the negative way. That's terrible. Never should do that. Just the opposite. That's why we see that Amalek and Bilam have that type of connection to Jews, and that's why they think that they'll be able to outsmart Hashem and be able to curse the Jewish people. So we come from a day of celebration of a redemption of the Friedrich Rebbe. He was free from prison. And so we say that from every redemption is like a miniature of the major redemption. If you're celebrating the freeing of the Rebbe from the prison, that should enhance and encourage you to be even more insistent that we should make sure that we get Mashiach, and we get Mashiach now.
Amen. And with that, thank you so much for listening to episode 116 of the Pos-cast with Rabbi Shmuel Posner. We will see you next week.